Let me ask you something most people never think to ask. Where in your body do you hold your mask? Is it in your jaw, clenched from smiling too long, too hard, too politely? Is it in your chest, tight from trying to appear calm when you're overstimulated? Is it in your gut, twisting every time you overthink a text or rehearse your lines to sound just right? Why I ask is because masking is something our nervous systems do over and over until it feels like second nature, until we forget what safety even feels like. Hi, I'm Essie. I'm an autistic and ADHD therapist, and in today's video, we're going to explore the physical cost of masking, the toll it takes on your nervous system, your body, and your health. We'll talk about why neurodivergents often live in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, even when there's no obvious danger, and how chronic survival mode becomes our baseline. We'll also talk about what your body might be trying to tell you, because sometimes the panic, the shutdown, the chronic fatigue is your system doing exactly what it was trained to do: keep you alive. When people talk about masking, they often picture something cognitive: scripts, smiles, mimicking social norms, managing eye contact, trying to be appropriate. But for neurodivergent folks, masking lives in our bodies. It is the memory of the first time you were shamed for your tone, or punished for a meltdown, or mocked for stimming, or honesty, or enthusiasm. Your body learned the rule: being yourself isn't safe. And from that moment on, your nervous system kicked in to protect you. That's where the survival responses come in. You might have heard of them: fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. On one hand, they're emotional reactions, and on the other, they're physiological programs, or automatic responses your body runs when it senses threat. But here's the key. For neurodivergent people, the threat isn't always danger in the traditional sense. It's social rejection, conflict, confusion, overstimulation, invalidation, or shame. So when your body perceives a mismatch between your authentic self and the social rules around you, it responds physically. Fight. You feel agitated, defensive, maybe even angry. You might argue, interrupt, or over-explain to avoid being misunderstood. Flight. You shut down. You escape mentally, physically, or emotionally. You ghost conversations. You disappear. Freeze. You go still. Words vanish. Time slows down. You stare and nod, but can't access speech. You lose the ability to respond. Fawn. You become extra nice. You agree, accommodate, smile when you don't mean it. You perform emotional labor to make others feel comfortable at your own expense. These are reflexes, and for many of us, they're a daily act. You see, if you're constantly masking in environments that don't feel safe, your nervous system never really comes out of survival mode. You're always on alert, even when nothing seems wrong, even when you appear calm on the outside. Inside, your system is working overtime, and gradually that becomes chronic. But for many neurodivergents, survival is a lifestyle. You might wake up already bracing. You might walk into a room scanning for social cues. You might go through an entire workday rehearsing, filtering, adjusting, so that by the time you get home, even a soft question feels like an attack. This is what happens when masking becomes your nervous system's default. At first, it's adaptive. You survive childhood, you keep jobs, you avoid bullying, you maintain fragile relationships. But over time, the cost adds up physiologically. Chronic survival mode looks like digestive issues, migraines, autoimmune flares, difficulty sleeping or waking, fatigue that doesn't go away with rest, executive dysfunction, even for things you want to do, emotional flooding or shutdown over small triggers, sensory intolerance that gets worse when you're stressed. The thing is, you might not even realize you're masking. The longer you do it, the more invisible it becomes, even to yourself. Maybe you've heard yourself say, "I'm just tired all the time. I crash after social events, but I don't know why. I thought I was fine until I hit a wall." That wall is the nervous system saying, I can't fake it anymore. And the cruel part is, the better you've masked, the less likely people are going to see your burnout. They think you're fine because you're still polite, still working, still smiling. But inside, your system is running on fumes. It's trying to keep you socially appropriate while quietly screaming, this is not okay. When you've spent years being told, don't be so sensitive, or that's not a real problem, or you're overreacting, your body doesn't just move on. It adapts quietly, strategically, rigidly. And these adaptations will start to look like personality. You become the chill one, the low maintenance friend, the high achiever. Maybe you become the one who never complains, never rests, never says no. But underneath that image, your body is carrying the cost of containment. Autistics and ADHDers often experience this as chronic muscle tension, shallow breathing, posture collapse, or gut issues, but it's rarely identified as a trauma response. It gets misdiagnosed as anxiety or dismissed as being just how you are. In reality, your body might be screaming through symptoms you were taught to ignore. Unmasking isn't always visible. Sometimes it looks like letting yourself breathe deeply for the first time in years, noticing that your jaw unclenches when you stim, realizing that your digestive issues improve when you stop suppressing emotions, feeling suddenly exhausted because you're finally safe enough to rest. It's disorienting at first, and sometimes when the mask loosens, grief floods in, because the body remembers every moment it had to shut down to be allowed to stay. That grief is a signal. You're safe enough now to feel what you couldn't before. So many neurodivergent people try to think their way out of burnout. We analyze, we research, we journal, we intellectualize our trauma, our masking, our fatigue. And that makes sense because the mind is often where we feel most in control. But here's the thing, you can't outthink a nervous system response. Masking isn't just mental, it's somatic. It lives in the body, which means healing has to start here too. That doesn't mean abandoning cognitive tools, but rather adding body awareness to the process, learning to listen to what your body already knows. For example, you may notice that you hold your breath when someone's watching you, or that you clench your fists when you're pretending to be fine, or that your shoulders tighten when you enter a group chat or a group room. These are data points, not signs of weakness, not symptoms to fix. They're your body's way of saying, this feels unsafe. I'm working too hard to perform. I need rest. I need regulation. I need to come back home to myself. Somatic awareness is the foundation of unmasking. It might start with noticing when you override a need, taking a break before your body demands it, letting yourself stim, fidget, or move in ways that release tension, honoring your no even when your mask says sure, and maybe most importantly, pausing before you perform. The option to choose is what makes it healing. When masking becomes automatic, it's less a strategy than a prison. But when you reclaim the ability to choose when to show up, when to rest, when to express, you begin to rebuild a sense of agency. And that agency is what your nervous system has been craving all along. What happens when your body begins to feel safe again? When masking isn't your only survival strategy? When your nervous system isn't constantly on alert? When you begin to notice your needs before they become emergencies? Well, something subtle but profound starts to shift. You move from coping to connection. It's hard to connect with others, or even with yourself, when your body is stuck in survival mode. Survival narrows your focus. It turns every social interaction into a test. It makes you scan for judgment, rejection, danger, even when there's no threat. But regulation opens the door to presence. Suddenly, you can actually hear what someone is saying instead of rehearsing your next line. You can notice when you're getting overstimulated and step away with kindness. You can say what you mean instead of what you think they want to hear. You can ask for clarification instead of pretending you understand. You can receive care without guilt and offer care without depletion. Unmasking becomes more than survival. It becomes relational. You stop filtering every word through the lens of, will this make me weird? You stop bracing every time someone asks, can we talk? You stop leaving conversations with shame hangovers and imaginary apologies. And maybe, just maybe, you begin to feel liked for who you actually are because you showed up in a way that was honest, embodied, and enough. That doesn't happen all at once. It's a slow unfurling, but it starts in the body because that's where the fear lives, and that's where safety returns. It's easy to believe that healing is a solo journey, especially when you've been told your whole life you're too much, you're the problem, you need to manage your reactions. But healing, especially from a nervous system level harm, is not meant to happen in isolation. We unlearn the mask in the presence of people who don't need it from us. That might mean a friend who lets you stim without comment, a therapist who mirrors your pacing instead of correcting it, a partner who lets you take breaks mid-conversation and doesn't take it personally, even a pet who just exists with you, no questions asked. These moments of safety, though small, are somatic re-education. They teach your nervous system you don't have to perform here. You're not about to be judged. You can stay. The more often your body has those experiences, the more it learns that regulation is possible. If you've never had that, it's likely because the people around you may never have been taught how to show up for difference. But that doesn't mean it isn't possible. It means we start where we are, by seeking, creating, and offering spaces where nobody has to mask to be welcome. You may have heard the phrase, the body keeps the score. It's often used to explain trauma, how the nervous system remembers what the mind forgets, how our muscles, hormones, and gut hold on to things we thought we pushed past. But here's something equally important. The body doesn't just keep the score, it also keeps the truth. It knows when you're pushing too hard. It knows when a smile is a shield. It knows when your I'm fine is really a freeze response. And maybe most importantly, it knows who you were before the mask, even if you don't remember, even if it's buried under years of performance and people-pleasing, even if you're still not sure what the real you feels like. The body remembers in the way you breathe when you feel safe, in the way you stim when you're unobserved, in the way you speak when you stop rehearsing. Unmasking is about what your body starts trusting again. So if you feel tired, if you can't put words to the burnout, but your stomach's in knots and your chest is tight and your fuse is short, please know your nervous system learned to protect you the best way it could. And now it might be ready to try something new. Not overnight, not all at once, but gradually. Because your body holds both your history and your healing. And maybe for the first time, it might be safe enough to listen. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and share it with anyone you think might benefit from my content. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.